The brief that we received was far more than just a tower in Sweden. This was about a city that was 400 years old, that was going to be thinking about how they were going to look to the future. We really were struck by that. It wasn't so much about the tower, it was really what the symbol and the symbolism was related to the tower.
Karlatornet byggs på Lindholmen, mitt i Göteborg. Nu när tornet nått en så pass hög höjd att det blir synligt från långt håll så framträder också dess kännetecken, twisten, allt tydligare. Arkitekterna bakom tornet, SOM, är den internationella arkitektbyrån som tagit fram ikonbyggnader som Wills Tower i Chicago eller Burj Khalifa i Dubai. Och nu också Karlatornet i Göteborg. Men hur går processen till när man ska ta fram en sån här unik byggnad?
What does a tall building symbolize to a city? And you could look at what the Campanile is to St. Mark's Square in Venice, or you could think about what the high-rise design might mean to the US and maybe Chicago and New York of how they identified themselves with tall buildings. Or it could be even where a city that we didn't know probably 20 years ago, like Dubai. Each have their own purpose and their own story behind them.
Like many places around the world, the industrial area was starting to slow down, become less relevant. Those places were becoming wastelands. And the opportunity to change that, see new development occur on the north side of the river in such a way that you don't encourage sprawl, but you actually densify the city and bring people to want to live in the heart of the city. That's the real thing that we look to seek. And providing a singular building that says we are here, that actually responds to that, is a real kind of beacon, a lighthouse for why you would want to assemble around Karlatornet. Each project that we look at is a first prototype because we don't repeat our designs. We're always looking at how we evolve our thinking, how we respond to new challenges. So I can't give you a book of drawings that we've proved work before. Each time we look at something, we're starting afresh.
The ideas that came forward for the project was, how do you express people living in a tall building? A lot of times they might be office buildings that might go to such height, but this was actually going to be where people live. It also was, let's be honest, that Gothenburg isn't known for 70-story buildings. So this is a city that's a much lower scale, and how do you actually make that relationship? And so that was important to us, that we didn't want to just come out and say, this is going to just stand on its own, this is going to be something completely different. We wanted to have certain identifications to how we could get this tower to relate to Gothenburg. If you look at the building, we wanted to actually have identifiable moments about how it breaks up into 4 volumes. It also, I think, at ground level, had a completely different reference point to it did in the skyline. And so it was important to how the building presents itself and greets at the ground level. But then there's this important aspect when you look at tall buildings and how they're identified around the city. And so we had kind of key axis points that brought the building in a relationship and kind of grounded the tower.
So how do you take something that is simple enough to be believable in a market where it hasn't been done before, but still bring some life and some levity to it, something that excites? And I think that's what the twist can do.
Tall buildings can often get quite complicated, so it's really critically important that the structure is simple and clear. And so for Karlatornet to realize the twist, we actually did a very simple gesture where we took each floor plate and we simply rotated it a tiny bit. And not even the whole floor plate, just 4 of edges. And so at each floor, they simply change and the columns all stay straight. So all that's happening is an edge is translating. And each of those incremental facets together reads organically as this twisting shape.
Då står vi på våning 43, mitt i tvisten. Här ser man tydligt att det inte är kvadratiskt längre, utan fasaden bildas som en oktagon runt kärnan. Den största skillnaden är att tidigare har alla våningar varit likadant. När det kommer till tvisten så är det mycket mer utmaningar med placering. Det finns inga detaljer som är likadana. Så det är en utmaning, men det är en väldigt rolig utmaning.
And if your context at the lower levels is perhaps the city and the buildings around you, and your context at the upper levels is the archipelago, the mountains to the north, those are the reasons why you would want to twist and find something that captures those differing views in that different context.
We did a lot of different studies of how we did this, of how daylight comes into the streets and how it will be seen from around different viewpoints and how wind will actually move through the site, and took very careful series of steps in order to make sure that this was incorporated master plan, not just a tower with a series of buildings that came around it, but actually try to be quite thoughtful in the way in which other medium-sized buildings and taller buildings can emerge within this master plan as well.
To determine how much the building accelerates due to wind gusts, we still can't accurately predict that with computers, and the only reliable way at present is to actually go into a laboratory, put the building in a wind tunnel, and measure the response from a physical model. So we looked at the position of the twist, if we moved it up, if we moved it down, and would that make a difference? It turned out it had only a negligible beneficial effect. It did make a difference, but not significantly different from a square building. But what did make a huge difference was the orientation of the building. So the corner, it's quite intuitive, the corner, like the bow of a boat, is pointed into the predominant wind direction. And that results in better performance, less what we call vortex shedding, the vortices that come off either side of the building and tend to shake it side by side. It happens less frequently because of the specific orientation of the tower.
When you think about something that takes as long to build, it also plays a part of how long it will last. You know, you think about the city being 400 years old. You know, I hope, again, you know, it's a lot to say a building 400 years on, but we really hope this gives us great kickstart to a new regeneration of Gothenburg.
I serien Tornet följer vi hela bygget av Karlatornet. Resan mot toppen fortsätter i snabb takt, och i början av sommaren 2023 så kommer tornet nått sin fulla höjd. Men vad kommer Karlatornet att betyda för staden Göteborg, dess invånare och som destination? Detta tar vi reda på i nästa avsnitt av Tornet.